Hi and welcome everyone to another lesson. In today's lesson, I'm going to be walking you through the steps to paint this beautiful orange and purple pansy. And I'm using just regular oil paint today. So I hope that you'll enjoy this lesson and be able to follow along. And I also paint in acrylic and water-based oil, and I use the same colors so that you can follow along. So I hope that that helps. So if you're painting and you go, oh, I can't do this video because it's in oil, don't worry. I do the same kind of technique in acrylic. It's just that oil is much more forgiving when it comes to the blending element of the video. It's just a little bit, you have just more drying time. But other than that, I enjoy both mediums, and I have lessons on my Patreon channel that have both. So pansies and acrylic as well. So anyhow, I'm going to get started with a little wash just to get rid of the white. I'm going to use a little of this ultramarine blue and this transparent brown oxide. Oh, and up here, you can't see it, but I have just some white and some cad yellow light up here. If I have my palette too far down, it will get all over, I'll be dragging my hand through this. So, as you can see, it kind of gives a gray wash to this little gesso board that I'm using. And these gesso boards are great for little studies. And if you sell your paintings online, they're really easy to ship because they don't take up a lot of space. So I just like to get that nice kind of neutral tone to my surface. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to really focus in on just painting this pansy and keep it simple. So I could even wipe out where I'm going to put the main part of this pansy, like all the petals, if I want to keep that yellow really clean underneath. So just kind of basic, where it's gonna be. And then the other pansies in the background are just gonna be kind of more, like abstract shape in my composition. As you can see, I can't really paint and talk today. I like to keep talking though, so you're not just sitting there falling asleep while I paint. But also so that you get as much out of the video as you can. All right, so I kind of wiped out where some of the shapes are gonna go, all the different pansy shapes. But I want to block in now using some of this Indian yellow and I'm just using regular odorless mineral spirits. Boy, that's a mouthful today. So I'm just going to get a little bit of that Indian yellow, and I want to block in kind of where that pansy is going here. And I kind of like how it's on a bit of an angle, so I want to make sure that I capture that in my drawing. And when I say drawing, I mean painting. For me, it's much easier to block in these shapes than it is to draw everything out. I'm just going to block in a bit of some of those yellow abstract patterns in the background there. And they kind of go up and off the canvas. And the beauty is Indian yellow. Down here I've got out a little blob of dioxazine violet, and this is permanent rose. Let's see if I can just add that in there. just so you have that. And those are just, I mainly use Winsor and Newton paint, but sometimes I'll use Blick, you know, or Utrecht brand. Okay, so just kind of blocking in. I'm going to use a little bit of this transparent brown oxide and just sort of want to put that center in, and so I can see exactly what I'm doing there. Then I'm going to get a little bit of this dioxazine violet. And I'm really trying to keep this painting loose. So I'm not going to be making these, you know, pansies hyper realistic, if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to block in where there's like a real dark shadow on the flower. Also the shape of the pansy petal too. They kind of go up like little butterfly. They remind me of like kind of butterfly wings. They're so delicate. And then to get that sort of transparent purple, I'm going to use a little bit of that permanent rose in there. And I'm going to show you a trick that I use to get that sort of transparent look. And while I'm at it, I'm going to put in, just like I said, sort of we're creating sort of patterns of purples, and I'm looking at the background at some shapes. I'm really not trying to make anything here even remotely look like a pansy when I'm doing these background, just sort of the shapes I'm seeing. These are going to be really just sort of in the background. And sometimes you'll be surprised, the less you try, the better your flowers look. Sometimes I'll work so hard and they look better when I just do them real spontaneously like this. I'm adding a little bit of cobalt blue to these ones that are down here. They're in a little bit of more of a shadow. And so while I'm blocking in, I'm going to just use a little bit of this Viridian green and some brown oxide, transparent brown oxide here. And I'm going to now just sort of block in some of the green in between those marks. This is going to look really this painting is going to be very loose. I'll use a little Indian yellow and some of that Viridian green. Just get a little bit more of, when you mix Indian yellow with the Viridian or sap, you kind of get a nice green gold color, so you don't have to go and buy another tube of paint. You can, if you want it to look even more gold, just add more of the transparent, the Indian yellow. You'll get that transparent green gold kind of color. And you'll see what I'm going to do next. I'm just putting these marks in, and that's why I like to start with sort of that neutral wash in the background, just so as you get more and more committed in your painting, it just gives it that nice, like, any light that's shining through, it's not white at least, you know what I mean? You don't want to have that. That would be a lot of work to try to fix. So I'm just going to take one of these soft Viva paper towels. I'll just rip a little piece off. And what you can do is, I like to sort of like, I'll lift off some of this paint here where I know I want that to kind of glow a bit. And you can see, let me just zoom in, when you lift it off, it gets that sort of glow to it. The more you lift off, of course, the more you get back to that original white canvas. So I'm going to do that, and I like to now, you see all these little kind of specks coming through. This is where you can kind of really make some neat marks, is just using your paper towel to sort of fill in, and just keep folding it so you get a clean spot again. And you can just see how pretty these brush strokes look. Let me just show you up close. So this one here, it sort of makes your job a little easier. And it keeps it loose, so you're getting so many of these really loose marks everywhere. I really have fun with that. And then the background really takes on a background, because this will be your main focal point flower, but you're really going to see this softens all those marks together, forming sort of a tapestry. And this is what people really enjoy, is the loose brush strokes. So it takes a little practice. Just when you're doing it, notice that I'm not covering over, I'm not bringing it right through. When I'm wiping off, I'm very careful about bringing too much over the yellows. I'll get a clean bit of paper towel, and you can bring some of that yellow back over some of these like that, but you don't want to go through it too much with the greens. And if you get too much on your paper towel, just go make sure to get another piece and go again. So now you can see I've got kind of the grounds for everything is there, and then I can decide later what color I want to do the sky, if at all. Sometimes I like the kind of raw background. Alright, so now I'm going to go back to my main flower here and really focus on some of the details. So if you squint down and look at the flower itself, this bottom petal is a little darker. So I'm going to get, let's see what I'm going to use here. I think some of this transparent red oxide, and I could try a little bit of this orange and some of this cad yellow light, and sort of get some of the darker side of this flower in there. And then a little bit of yellow ochre for the shadow up here. And my brush strokes are going with the flower. So just like the flower goes up and out like that, I try to drag the paint that way. And then you can also go back inwards as well like that. But the main thing I kind of try to do is mimic the way the flower has its kind of veins and everything. So it kind of comes in and goes down like this. And this kind of curves out a little bit more. So it's this petal is curling over. And another tip, sometimes if the flower's too, in the photo that you really like is just too complex, the way it's formed, you could always just simplify this to two petals that are the same as this one. So you could just do two simple, round ones like that. And that's sometimes a good idea if it's a little bit too complicated. I can show you what I would do. So I'm just kind of showing you right there how that's going. Oops, I got green on my brush. So if you do that and you get some green, or you don't want it, don't worry, because you can use a dry brush and sort of scrape it, or you can just use a paper towel like that and wipe it out. And I'm going to lift off some of this paint here, just to create that light coming through. Just sort of lift off where I want it to be really bright again. So you can see how pretty that looks too when you lift off the paint. You really get a nice kind of glow to the painting. And I like to get the center in there, work on the little, it's kind of like a face, so I'll work on that. So I'm going to mix some orange with this transparent oxide, red oxide, and a bit of this permanent rose to get a nice warm shadow on this side of the flower here where it kind of curls in. And you always have to look like, what is this? Is it in front of these two or behind? In this case, it's in front. And sometimes I'd paint the whole thing and not really pay attention to those details. And then later I'd go, that was really obvious. And then have to kind of redo some of it. Just mixed a little. This is the shadow side, and then I'm mixing a little bit of orange and yellow ochre into that other side. I haven't used any white yet, and eventually I probably will, to make these colors really stand out a bit more. So I'm gonna now I'll add a little bit of white to this mixture and a little more yellow.